Hey everyone, so the Village of the Hills just had a special city council meeting. Now, it only lasted about an hour, but trust me, they made some pretty big decisions that are going to affect everything from your wallet to who's representing you. So let's dive right in and break it all down.
Okay, so here's the big question that came out of this meeting, and it's a bit of a head scratcher. How on earth can a town collect more money from property taxes while at the same time lowering the actual tax rate for its residents? It sounds like a riddle, right? Well, stick with me because we're going to unravel exactly how they managed to do it. All right, first up, let's talk about something that affects all of us, our wallets. We're going to look at the brand new budget and solve that tricky tax puzzle that has a direct impact on your bottom line. So the first big thing they did, they gave the green light to the new budget for the next fiscal year. You can think of this as the village's financial game plan for everything from this coming October all the way through September of next year. And what does that actually mean in dollars and cents? Well, this new budget is set to bring in about $10,060 more in property tax revenue than last year. That's an increase of about 1.5%. Okay, so when you hear the city's collecting more money, your first thought is probably, great, my taxes went up, right? It seems like basic math. But, this is where the whole story gets really interesting.
Well, get this, they actually did the complete opposite. They lowered the property tax rate. You can see it right here. The rate dropped from 9.36 cents for every $100 of your property's value down to just 9.2 cents.
Yeah, that's a 1.7% drop. And believe it or not, this is the second year in a row they've lowered the rate. The council said this is all part of their plan to be, and I'm quoting here, good stewards of public resources. But that still leaves the big question. How can they bring in more money with a lower rate?
So here's the secret sauce. It all comes down to new property additions. The village is growing. Every time a new house or a new business gets built, it gets added to the tax base. That means the total pie the village can take a slice from gets bigger, even if everyone's individual slice is a tiny bit smaller.
So think about it. Of that extra 10 grand in revenue, more than $2,500 is coming from these brand new properties. That growth is the magic ingredient that lets the village fund its operations without having to raise taxes on everyone who already lives there. And just like that, puzzle solved. All right, enough about taxes for a minute. Let's shift gears and talk about the fun stuff. How the council's decisions are going to shape what's happening out in the community, with festivals, events, and some pretty smart fundraising.
The council went ahead and approved the budget for the upcoming Hills Fest, which is always a great time. That included the money for the Hills City Limits music event. But honestly, the really interesting conversation wasn't about the money, it was about merchandise. This brought up a kind of tricky legal question. The city wants to sell stuff like hats at these events to raise a little money for community programs. But how can they do that without getting all tied up in the complicated world of sales tax regulations? And this is where they got pretty clever. See, the Hills is what's called a general law city, which puts some limits on what they can sell directly. So their solution? Instead of selling you a hat, they're going to offer it in exchange for a suggested donation. It's a neat little legal distinction that lets them skip the whole sales tax headache. Pretty smart, huh? And you're going to see this play out really soon. At the next Oktoberfest, keep an eye out for some village caps. They cost the city about $5 or $6 each to make, but they'll be available for a suggested donation of $15. It's a simple, win-win way to raise some funds. Okay, so we've covered your money and your community events. Now for the final big piece of the puzzle from this meeting, your voice on the council. There was an empty seat that needed to be filled, so let's walk through how they made that happen. So you might wonder how these appointments work. It can seem a bit mysterious, but it's actually pretty straightforward. First, the council ducks into a private executive session to talk about the different candidates. After about half an hour, they come back out into the public meeting, and literally a minute later, someone makes a motion. The key thing here is that the actual vote, the final decision, always happens out in the open. And before they took that vote, the mayor made a point of saying something really important. He gave a shout out to everyone who applied for the spot, saying the council was, quote, very impressed with the high talent and willingness to serve that all applicants brought to the table. It's a really nice nod to the fact that people in the community are stepping up. And so, the motion passed. The council officially appointed Brittany Mykoski to fill that empty seat. She'll be serving on the council until the election in November of 2026, which means the council is now back at full strength, ready to get to work. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of details. Let's step back for a second. Why should you care about a 1-hour meeting full of ordinances and motions?
Well, because all of this procedural stuff adds up to decisions that have a real, direct impact on your day-to-day life here. So let's do a quick lightning round of what you really need to know. 1, a new budget is locked in and it brings in more money for the village. 2, your property tax rate is actually going down again, which is fantastic. 3, there's a new donation system for merch at festivals. And 4, Brittany Mycoskie is the new face on the city council. What this all really shows is that these local meetings, even the short ones, pack a big punch. They influence your taxes, your community events, and who's making decisions on your behalf. So it leaves me with one final question for you. Do you know what's going on down at your own town hall? Thanks for tuning in.